myself every day now that I wasn't doing back then. I mean, the difference is honestly night and day. And so I want to talk about some of what I've done, and maybe you can take something away from this, and if not, maybe it's just a relaxing video to listen to while you do whatever it is that you are doing right now. So, let's just get straight into it. So, the first, actually the most recent of the things I'm going to talk about that I started doing for myself was getting rid of Instagram. Deactivating my account, deleting the app off my phone, and of course that in and of itself isn't a habit, but really the habit that it has started to build for me is spending less time online and on my phone. And so let's just talk about what it's done for me, because it's only been like a month and a half, I think like 6 or 7 weeks since I did it. I did it around the start of the new year, 2024. But it might actually be the most impactful of all the things I'm going to talk about in this video. So that's why I wanted to start with it. So really what it all comes down to is that I am terrible about comparing myself to other people. I have done it for as long as I've been alive, as long as I can remember. And of course, as I grew up and spent more and more and more time on social media, that became even worse of a habit. And it honestly, and this really isn't something that I could speak to up until this point, because I didn't know what it was like to not do it as much, but it was debilitating. I would go on Instagram, not because I wanted to, but really just because it was a habit at that point, and I'm sure many of you can relate. But I would go on, not for any reason in particular, but I would always leave or close out the app feeling worse than when I got on the app. And that was because I would see somebody, whether I knew them very well, whether I kind of knew them, whether I didn't know them at all, whether they weren't even a part of my world, and I would see that they were doing something that I haven't done, or that I didn't know about, or that I maybe had thought about but had never gotten a chance to do. Or they would say something about life that I hadn't thought of, or that I was working on but didn't feel like I was good enough at yet. I mean, you can obviously see where this is all going. And I would just immediately put myself in a position mentally where I was inferior to them. And so, I mean, to quantify this, my screen time has gone down from like something like 6 hours a day to maybe 3.5. And so you can kind of put a number on it, how much time a day I was spending on Instagram or just on social media in general, because the only thing I have left now is TikTok, and I gotta get rid of that too. But I was spending that much time every day feeling like I was just a piece of shit, and the impact that it had on me was really not just feeling badly about myself, but having so much mental chatter in my head, because I would get off the app thinking about something I had seen somebody say, or a video of a trip somebody was taking to a place I had never been before, so I would be thinking about that place. Or I would see a clip of a podcast with a person on who I thought was cool, and then I would be thinking about what it would be like to have their life. Just all the things that I'm sure all you guys do every time you go on Instagram, because it's kind of inevitable if you're going to go online. But really the point I'm trying to make with all of this is that since I have gotten rid of it and spent less time on my phone and less time online, my head has gotten so much quieter. So much quieter. And again, like I said a minute ago, I don't think this was something that I could have spoken to until I had actually spent some time off the app, because I've actually tried to get rid of Instagram at least a dozen times before and just never done it successfully. I would deactivate my account for a day or a week or maybe a month at most, and then I would always end up coming back on it because I felt like I was missing out, or I was just dopamine deprived, or I just felt like I had nothing else to fill that time with. That hour to a day that I would spend on Instagram, I felt like I couldn't fill it with anything else, so I'd always re-download it, and I would always end up right back in that same cycle. And I never really knew that my mind could be as quiet and peaceful as it is right now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like completely cured, because like I said, I still go on TikTok, I still go on actually YouTube, TikTok and YouTube, that's it. But it's not like I have just achieved nirvana and found a way to completely block out all mental chatter and all forms of comparison, because I still find other ways to do it, of course, and I still have a lot of running thoughts in my head at any given moment. But the difference in that mental chaos now compared to 2 months ago is so fucking substantial that if you're even considering taking some time off any of the social media apps or all of them, I know it isn't easy, but I would highly suggest doing it. Because I feel like whenever we pick up a habit or try to incorporate something new into our life, it's because we want more of something. You know, you do something because you pick up a productivity habit like cleaning or cooking because you want more time, or you want to save more money, or you want to put on more weight in the gym, or I don't know, you want to go on more vacations, or you want to read more books. And I'm not saying any of those things are bad, but this might be one of the best things I've done for myself in the past couple of years, and it involved removing something from my life. And I feel like, if anything, those might be the hardest habits to build, because it kind of seems harder to take something away than to add something into your day. I could be wrong, and that's just me, and I'm kind of just making this up as I go, because I didn't really take as many notes as I usually do, because I just wanted to start filming this because I had the idea. But yeah, taking away those couple hours of the day that I spent online and on Instagram has cleared up a lot of time, obviously, to think about other things, but really it's just cleared up a lot of mental clutter from my head and from my psyche, whatever you want to call it. And so yeah, I don't think there was any particular way I went about it that made it easier to do it now than it had been in the past. I think I was just in the right time and place to do it, and I've been trying to keep myself busy with other things, which is actually going to be the second habit that I give you in a second. But I think the best way to do it is just go cold turkey and try and replace it with something else. So whenever you're going on your phone and you would typically get on Instagram, get on TikTok, get on Twitter, whatever it is, get on Reddit, I would just try and fill it with something else, and know that it will get easier and you will feel so much calmer about your life. And yeah, like I said, for me it's just mostly been not comparing myself to the people and things and experiences that I would see every day. So I feel more confident and more secure in myself, because I feel like I wake up every day and I know what I need to do, and I'm not going on my phone and being exposed to a million different things I could be doing but I'm not, and putting myself in this place of psychological tension where I feel like I'm here and I should be here because I just saw somebody who's right here, but I'm only right here. So I wake up every day and I'm right here, and I feel good about that, because I'm not seeing where everybody else is in my space. I'm just right here. That's what I know, and that's what I do. So yeah, that being said, let's go straight to the second thing I've been doing, actually for the past couple of years, probably right since the end of 2021, start of 2022, and that is reading. I wanted to try and pick different things that I've done that might not be the traditional I wanted to be more well-spoken. And this actually ties back into going online so much. I felt like I was just seeing people talk like fucking idiots online, you know, not spelling words right, not completing sentences, not using punctuation, not really trying to be grammatically proper, because you don't have to be, and people will still understand, and that's kind of part of the culture. But I felt it leaking into the way that I actually talked to people. I felt like I was speaking like a caveman, like seriously, and I'm obviously exaggerating, but in my head, I felt like I wasn't as capable of formulating thoughts or using complicated words or just like finishing a thought within a couple of sentences without trailing off or just getting lost. I just felt like mentally I wasn't there, because I wasn't really exercising my brain, so to speak. And so honestly, I started reading because I wanted to talk more efficiently and effectively and sound like an intelligent person. That's just something that's important to me, and so I thought reading was the way to do that. And I think I was right, because I feel like 2 years ago I could not have made a video like this, because I just wouldn't have been able to stay on track the entire time or use the proper words to express how I was feeling. But honestly, what reading has really done for me, beyond just helping me talk better, is it's just served as an escape from reality. When I started reading, I was reading a lot of self-help books, self-improvement books, because I was going through a hard breakup. I felt like I had no fucking idea what I was doing with my life, and so it felt like a good way to try and figure out how to put myself back together and how to be productive, but still have an activity that kind of kept me out of my head for a little bit. And so that's what it was for me for the first year and change up until the start of last year, 2023. But after that, I started to do it just because I enjoyed it. And this kind of ties into a bigger theme in my life, which is that I only feel like I should be doing things that are productive or can advance me in some way. They can make me a better person, a better business owner, because I have a business with my best friend, a better athlete, better mentally, better physically, better spiritually, better emotionally. I'm obsessed about doing things that can make me better. And so if you're like that, then I think reading can be great, because you can read self-help books, self-improvement books, just different books on different things that can offer you new perspectives and ways of doing things. I've literally read books on healthy habits. The book Atomic Habits is the one that comes to mind. Obviously, that's very popular. But reading over time evolved from being something that I did because I felt like I should be doing it and I was supposed to be, to something that I just did because I enjoyed. And that really started when I read a fiction book that I actually just posted a video about. It was a bedtime story reading, and the book is called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And it's by Gabrielle Zevin, and it is the best book I've ever read, honestly. I've read it twice now, and I loved it even more the second time. And I was just so obsessed with the storyline and being a part of this different world that it truly did serve as an escape from reality. And I found myself reading for hours a day, every day, just because I loved it. I loved the book. I didn't feel like I had to take something away from it. I didn't feel like I had to turn it into something more than it was. It was just this beautiful piece of art, and I consumed it because I loved it. And I think it just reminded me, doing that, reading fiction books, which are what I primarily read right now, just reminded me that I don't constantly have to be doing things to improve or be on my grind or hustling or whatever. I hate that I'm so obsessive about that and such a part of that culture mentally, but I am, and so that's kind of helped me get away from it a little bit. And I think if you're like that, that you should try reading a fiction book, even if it feels uncomfortable or like a waste of time. I would just give it a shot. Gotta take a quick little water break here. So, with that being being said, the third habit that I have made more of an effort with these past couple of months has been, it's actually connected to the first one, but it is spending less time listening to music and podcasts. The impetus for this really came from this YouTube video I watched. I can't remember the guy who made it, but he was just talking about how much music people listen to, him specifically, and he just kind of suggested trying to do things without listening to music once in a while, and I did, and it was weird and it felt wrong. So I kind of abandoned it for a bit, but then a few months ago, I think at the end of November, I got my Spotify Wrapped back for 2023. And I had something like 90,000 minutes of listening time, which, you know, is fucking absurd. And I know that at least I did, but I'm sure a lot of you guys also. And maybe this was some of you, but went online and saw people who had like 100,000 minutes, 200,000 minutes, just absurd amounts of time spent listening to music and podcasts on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you listen. And I did the math on it, and I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's dozens and dozens and dozens of days spent listening to stuff. And it wasn't so much that idea that bothered me as the fact that I kind of realized that I spend so much time listening to something in my ears, whether it's my AirPods or headphones or a speaker or a TV or just off my computer or just off my phone, that I was spending like literally no time in silence. There was always something playing, always. And so obviously I can sit here now and again I can say like, oh, my head is so much quieter. I feel like I have time to think and be creative and just actually spend time pondering things that I'm interested in. But truthfully, I think that spending so much time listening to something was having a really negative impact on me emotionally. Because, you know, when you're listening to something on Spotify and a song comes on that you really like, but it's from a couple of years ago when you were going through something and it kind of transports you back to that sad place. I have a lot of songs that do that for me, because I think I'm just more sensitive in general, but I just feel like I was constantly like oscillating back and forth between different moods, and I was so emotionally turbulent because I was being exposed to so many different kinds of emotions. One minute I would be listening to Drake and it would be, I don't know, 7969 Santa, just some hype shit. I'd be listening to some rap, some shit that would get me gassed up, and I'd feel motivated, I'd feel excited, I'd feel energized about life. And then the song would change, and the next song was by Lainey, and it was Thick and Thin or Malibu Nights or just some sad-ass song that would inevitably have an impact on my mood, and I would go from energetic and excited and pumped up to depressed, because I would remember the first time I listened to that song, and I would remember the people I associated with that song and the time of life I was in. And it would just take this little subconscious mental toll on me that would kind of swing me back and forth between different moods and different mindsets and attitudes about my life. And I think it really fucked with me because I felt like I could never consistently be in one place. And the same was very true of the podcasts I would listen to. Sometimes I would listen to funny podcasts and I would feel kind of in a lighthearted or cheerful mood, and then I would switch it and I would be listening to a true crime podcast that would be stressful. And I feel like I'd be on edge and I wouldn't really be paying attention to anything else going on around me because I was so interested in the story. And other times I would listen to motivational podcasts and I feel like I needed to change my entire life, and that all my shit was so fucked up that I just needed to overhaul everything in my world. And I was just doing this 24/7 every day from the second I woke up and got out of the shower to the second I fell asleep, because I would listen to things to fall asleep. And and so I felt like I was never really having my own thoughts or feelings about the actual shit that was going on right in front of me. And that really fucked with me. But I could never have told you that in the moment. I can only tell you now because I spend less time on Spotify and less time listening to podcasts. I've actually been going to the gym and working out without any music recently, or going in the sauna at the end of a workout without any music and just sitting there. And although it might make the workout a little, I wouldn't say worse because I like it now, but different and feel emptier, it has given me time to just think about my life and sit with my emotions better instead of just feeling sad and turning on a sad song to really revel in my shitty mood, or trying to put on music to amp myself up when I really wasn't in the mood to get all jacked up on hype shit. So I hope that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me now, but I feel like it's something I couldn't have really said until I spent some time not listening to stuff, and that's obviously where I am now. And I want to get better at this because I've actually been listening to music at the gym again recently, and I feel worse, so I kind of need to get back on that. But yeah, that's just something that I think has made a big difference for me, and I would suggest that you try it at least for maybe an hour a day. If you could just carve it out, just try it. Sorry, I'm trying to breathe away from the mic because this isn't like the big studio mic I have, so it's a lot more sensitive. But hopefully my voice still sounds fine on this. You guys can let me know if it doesn't. I listened to a couple like short practice tracks I did, and it sounded good, so I hope it does. But that brings me to the fourth habit that I have picked up these past few months, and that is, honestly, I hate to say this because I used to think this was the cringiest thing when people said it, and I still think it is when certain people say it, because I feel like it kind of has a stigma around it, but it's practicing gratitude. And so, like I said, up until a few months ago, and even sometimes still, whenever people tell me to just be grateful and, really appreciate how great your life is and just soak it all in because you're never going to get this back and blah blah blah, I've always rolled my eyes, and I'll get into why in a second. But I need to start by saying that I have been working on it and making an effort to. This is how I do it right now, is out loud I say thank you universe, and I list 5 things about my life and my world that I'm thankful for every day. I don't know why I'm getting so embarrassed because it really has made a big difference for me, but yeah, I will, just to give an example, I'll just do one with you right now. So I would say thank you universe, I say it out loud, and then I'd say I'm thankful that I woke up happy and healthy today with the ability to do whatever I want. I'm thankful that I have the ability to be creative and make things that I want to make and share thoughts I want to make, like what I'm doing right now. I'm thankful for my best friend Parker, who makes my life so much better, and who is someone I can share anything with and that I'm working on building a life with as a best friend. That sounded like we're dating, but because we're working on a business together, and he's just my best friend in general. I am thankful for my girlfriend and the different perspectives she brings to me, and that she gives me the ability to love somebody and be loved. And I am grateful for my mom and dad, who have done everything for me and who are the best parents I could ever ask for. And then I always include my siblings because I love them and I appreciate them. So that's kind of what I would do out loud always every day. I haven't done it as consistently these past couple of weeks, but since like November I've been trying to do it every day. So let me now talk about, I'm getting uncomfortable, let me talk about why I've had such a hard time with this. Really, it's as simple as I have always associated being grateful with being complacent. I've always just thought that if you were sitting there talking about how great your life is and how much you appreciate it and how wonderful it is and how blessed you are, that you are getting complacent. words, you're not going to remember that you have the ambition to go do other things. You're not going to want to make your life better because you're just going to be sitting there and talking about how great it is. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty obsessive about trying to be a better person every day, trying to get better at whatever it is I'm doing and put my 100% into everything I do, and just to show up every day and put in the work. So whenever somebody would tell me to try practicing gratitude and just saying things I was thankful for, I would be very resistant to it, because I felt like if I did that I would just be okay with the way my life was, and that I wouldn't want to make it any better than it was, and that I would just be stuck here, and that I would hate myself in the long run. As it turns out, I was wrong. I've been doing this for a few months now, and I haven't felt any reduction in my motivation or my drive to try and do more shit with my life. Honestly, if anything, I feel like it's increased a little bit, because I want to do better for the people around me that I am grateful for, and, work on building those connections and making myself a better person so that I can be better for them. And that's really kind of it. I've always hated the way that people talked about it online, like, oh, I'm starting a gratitude journal, oh my gosh, my life is so wonderful, and I love myself so much, and I'm perfect, and I can do no wrong, and I show myself so much grace, and it doesn't matter if I fuck up, because I have the best life ever, and I'm just blessed to be a human at all. And do you know how rare it is to be a human? We never get an opportunity like this again. We don't know where we're going when we die, so you should just appreciate every day and be happy with what you have and not try to get so much more. I've always rejected that so strongly, but I think I have come to realize that there's a happy medium where you can be grateful for what you have, but still want to have more and do better for yourself and the people around you. And so I'm trying to occupy that space in the middle. It's not as black and white as I used to think it was. So, yeah. One last water break. So, the fifth and final habit that I have gotten myself into these past few months, and this one has been since about October of last year, 2023, is running. And this is probably the most boring of the 5 that I listed, and I might actually do one more after this that I just remembered, but running, you know how people say going to the gym is an escape from reality and it's a place where all your problems go away. I have never really felt like that. I've been lifting weights for like 5 years now. Nope, not 5 years, Jesus, like 8 years. I've been going to the gym almost every day and lifting weights, just the traditional stuff. And over the past couple of years, I've really enjoyed going and lifting less and less and less and less and less, because I feel like, if anything, I was just spending more time thinking about my problems there than I was anywhere else. 1 second, I gotta restart my camera. Okay. If you go to the gym, or if you've ever gone and lifted weights and just did the typical workouts of that kind, you know that there's a lot of downtime between sets. You know, you might do a set for like 30 seconds to a minute, and then spend 1, 2, 3, maybe even 5 minutes sitting there waiting to do your next set because you're resting and recovering. I just noticed that over these past few years that I would just sit there between sets, and I would kind of let my mind spiral, and I would start to think about my life and what I was unhappy about and what I thought I should be doing differently. And so my workouts kind of ended up being a thing that made me more stressed out than calm. And I think it's just because I've been going for so long that I'm starting to get a little bored by it, and it's still good to go and stay in that habit, but I say all this to say that running has been so beneficial for me, because it has actually been one of those things that I can do away from all my problems. I literally feel like I'm running from my problems for the 30 or 40 minutes that I go, like 2 or 3 times a week. If you run, or if you've ever run, like short, I run 3 miles. I'm training for a 5K right now, but for those 20, 30, 40 minutes or an hour that you run, it's a very physically intense and involved activity, so you don't really have the ability to think about things that are going on in your life because you're honestly just trying to survive and just make it to the end of the run. And so I think doing something physically strenuous like that forces you to kind of always be present with yourself physically has been a great way for me to go and do something that gets me completely out of my head and into my body. And that actually reminds me of a quote I heard from somebody on a podcast, of course, but I think the person said the best way to get out of your head is into your body. And I think that sometimes lifting weights just isn't enough of a body involved activity for me to get out of my head, but running is. And so also on a weird, like, fundamental level, there's something empowering about being able to take yourself from one place to another using only your feet. You know, you can look at some place in the distance and say, wow, I can actually get there by myself without using a car or a bike or a scooter or a train. It's cool. It's a cool feeling. And especially running outside, you get fresh air, you get sunlight, you get all those things that everybody tells you are good for you, but that you are sometimes resistant to do. Like, I used to go on walks outside, and I just felt like that wasn't physical enough because I would just walk and think about shit. And for some people that works, and that's great. I used to love doing that, but now running is really just a place to go do something that drains me physically and forces me to not be in my head and internalizing everything and intellectualizing everything. So that actually leads me into, well, it doesn't really lead me into, but I just remembered I had one more thing, so I'm going to bring it up and then we're done. My sixth and final habit that I worked on these past couple of years, and this is actually the first thing I did for myself before I did any of the other things I talked about in this video, which was start going to therapy. Start going to therapy. Start going to therapy. This one is hard to explain in a short amount of time. I'm sure you could probably guess a lot of the benefits I've experienced just by going. But truthfully, I think that going to therapy and talking to somebody every week has been the best thing I could have ever done for myself. And that's largely because when I started going, I was in such a fucked up place mentally and emotionally, and I hated myself so much, and I still struggle. But I was so negative and critical of myself, negative towards myself and critical of myself when I started going, that to compare my life now and how I look at myself in the world now to where I was when I started going, truthfully, it makes me want to cry for myself. Like, it's that fucked up where I was when I decided that I needed to see somebody. And I think really the biggest benefit I've experienced is learning how to regulate and manage my own emotions, because I don't know how old you are, but I'm 23, bad feelings are just inevitable. Of course, nothing lasts forever, but as much as you know that nothing is permanent, you know that some things are always going to continue to happen for the rest of your life, and one of those things is feeling negatively or battling negative emotions and just generally going through it. And so when I started going to therapy, I thought that if I went enough and I worked on myself enough, that I just wouldn't have negative emotions anymore. I would love myself, I would love my life, I would love the world around me, I would love the people around me, and that would be it. But as I've come to learn, and I'm sure many of you have as well, it's not at all about learning how to avoid those emotions and not have them anymore, but it's entirely about learning how to deal with them and not let them ruin you. Because years ago, and I'm still guilty of it to this day, but much more so a few years ago. I would let bad emotions or bad days just ruin me. They would turn into bad weeks and bad months and honestly even bad years. And they would affect everything from my relationships to my perception of myself, to my work, to my hobbies, to just any and everything. But now, because I go every week and I try to take something away from every session and I try to put in the work, I think my therapist made a really good analogy or metaphor, whatever you want to call it, for it, is that if you kind of look at a graph of your life, I'll make it personal. She asked me to kind of describe what a line graph of my life would look like, and the positive y-axis was feeling good about myself, and the negative y-axis was feeling badly about myself, and the x-axis, which was 0 on the y-axis, was just kind of a baseline and time. So my graph used to look like this. I was so volatile emotionally and turbulent and all over the place. And going to therapy has helped reduce that to where I am mostly staying in the middle. And I'll give one more example. She asked me right when I started therapy, what percentage of the time would you say you feel good versus bad, like happy versus sad, or hopeful versus hopeless? And I said it was like 20-80. 20% of the time I felt good, and 80% of the time I felt like shit. And she told me that a great outcome for therapy and the work I was going to do with her would be to bring that up to 60-40 or 65-35. So where I was feeling good 60% of the time or 65% of the time, and feeling bad 40% of the time or 35% of the time. And I remember when she said that to me, I thought she was a fucking idiot. I was like, what do you mean? The best I can do for myself in my life is just feel good 60% of the time. I'm here to feel good 100% of the time. That's stupid. Like, come on, let's shoot for the stars here. But, looking back on it now, I realize what she meant, and I think I've gotten to a place where I feel like more of a 60-40, and I feel like I can actually deal with the 40% of the time a lot more effectively, and I'm just super grateful that I went and that I did that for myself and that I took that risk, because I wasn't as scared about going. But I know a lot of people, specifically my guy friends, because it's harder for guys, who are terrified about going and who don't want to go because they feel like it's too uncomfortable and stressful and vulnerable. So I know it can be expensive, but if you have insurance, or you're still on your parents' insurance like I am, luckily I have a couple years left because I'm still 23, I would suggest just giving it a try. It's the best thing I could have ever done for myself, and I don't think there's any other way to explain it than by saying you have to be patient and put in the work. So, yeah, that's all I've got. I wanted to make this a little shorter of a video than what I've been putting out. I think my last two videos were like 59 and almost 50 minutes, so I also wanted to do this like a little more lo-fi. I didn't want to set up the whole tripod with the professional microphone and all that. I just wanted to talk because I want this to be fun. I don't want it to feel like I'm making a whole production. So yeah, I'm curious which, if any, of the things I mentioned do you do. If you are doing any of those right now, let me know. And if there are any that I didn't mention that you think might be good to try out, let me know. But other than that, I appreciate you listening if you made it this far, and I hope you have a great rest of your night or day, wherever you are, whatever time it is, and I will talk to you again soon. And actually, let me know if you like this more lo-fi, like casual format, because I think I do. This was a lot easier for me. So Yeah, love you guys.